So there's a lot of information about repetitive strain injury on the internet, a lot of talk about the medical issues, the types of injuries that happen. But what people don't really talk about is what it's like to live with RSI on a day-to-day basis. One of the hardest issues with repetitive strain injury is what you can do for work. How can you keep working? And one of the most common questions that I get is, what job can I do now that I can't use my hands? So we have Alexandria Carstens here. She's a certified dragon consultant, and she's transformed her life and her work life into this wonderful service for other people, which involves dictating to your computer rather than typing. So welcome to the show, Alexandria. We're thrilled
Thank,
to have you.
thank you.
And I thought to start out, we would just talk to you about how you first realized that you had an injury and then what happened next.
Yeah, this was about 23 years ago, and there was very, very little known about computer-related repetitive stress injury. Um, as I mentioned, your book was a godsend to find. Um, and I realized something was wrong when I was getting numbness in my wrists, tingling. Hands were spasming. I was dropping things. Um, and it finally happened where I would recover on the weekend. And then on Monday, I'd start in again. And by the end of the week, the pain was just excruciating. And then eventually, not even the weekends, I couldn't recover. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And by the end, I couldn't do anything. I mean, you could barely get dressed. Like buttons were a problem, zipping up my boots, just day-to-day activities. Suddenly, the most simple thing was unbelievably painful or just impossible.
And what were you doing professionally?
I was doing transcription work, and it was legal transcription for the most part, so it was very demanding. And being the perfectionist that I am, I typed well over 100 words a minute, and I would do that all day long, every day. And it did have an impact, obviously, a very negative one. And I loved my job. I actually really enjoyed what I was doing. And that was gone. Suddenly I wasn't able to interact with a computer anymore.
So it was episodic. You started and you could recover on the weekends, and then
Right.
for a while that didn't work. So it sounds like you had at one point to just give notice, or what
Yep.
happened next?
Well, I went on short-term disability, first of all, and thought that, okay, that was sufficient, and it wasn't. The short-term disability turned into long-term disability, and then eventually, um, the insurance company that they had, I was lucky, uh, said there's nothing they can do with me or for me, and that was it, right? So I would get, a check fraction of my former income, and that was it. It was awful. And I was younger, obviously, um, and I had to work. I mean, I'm a total type A. I have to be productive in my life, and that was taken away from me, and I spiraled into a very, very deep depression, um, as a result. uh, yeah.
And then you, I really hear this. I think that work is really important for people.
Yeah.
It's much more than a paycheck for people. A lot of people, they want to work, they want to make a contribution to society. And
Exactly. And one of I think the biggest misconceptions out there is, and that happened with me, and this I fought this with a variety of people, that I was malingering, and that type A personalities are the ones who are getting stricken with repetitive stress injury. Not just them, but that it's very common for type A personalities, people who are workaholics, and we are not malingerers. And that stigma is devastating, devastating. You know, when people think, oh, you're faking it, you're exaggerating,
What I
it's
always come to is, who wants to live on 10% of what they were making? Maybe,
absolutely.
I mean, there's really no there to get when you
No,
look at the sort of rates that you might get for a partial disability.
yeah,
Um, People, I don't know how they could pay their rent.
no, no, exactly. It's that misconception is just, it's horrible. People do not choose to be disabled. They don't. So,
Yes, and because RSI is a hidden disability, it doesn't
yeah,
show.
exactly.
It can lead people to wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Is it real? You know, and I fought with that, and I was on the receiving end of that from people I didn't even expect. And it was a shock. And you know, the people around me changed over time as a result of my injury. Uh, it, it was really interesting. This sounds maybe personal, but I lost most of my friends pre-injury, and all my friends that I made post-injury are still my friends today. Um,
And why do you think that is, Alexandria?
I think it's hard for very healthy people to really be around someone who they knew as once being completely functional to, wow, what do we do now? Right? You can't play pool, throw darts, go bowling, hiking, whatever it is. And suddenly the things that bonded you together as friends are not there. But whereas if you already start a friendship and they know you're, pardon my expression, gimped, you know, when they know you have certain limitations, great, you know, then the friendship forms around that understanding. And I think it's more long lasting.
So if you were going to give sensitivity training advice to people who don't know what it's like to have RSI, what sorts of things would you tell people?
To listen, really listen, to believe. Um, don't always ask, can I do something for you? Because honestly, you know, a lot of people, we don't know what we need, what we wanted. Um, and most people don't when you ask that question. Uh, just even do little things. Watch what the person's struggling with. I had an incident with a daughter of a friend of mine. They were visiting, and the daughter was watching me struggle with opening a jar or something, and she just very gently took it and dealt with it for me. It was a non-issue, right? And so don't make a big deal of it. Don't focus on it, but just help where you see help can be benefited from.
Yes, I think then it's tricky because you don't want to feel like an invalid
No.
and being invalidated by other people.
Exactly, exactly. It's hard enough, right?
Yeah.
So just look for opportunities where you can be a help, and don't focus on it. And listen.
So you've
Really.
had RSI from what you said for at least 20 years.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people expect that you'll get better, that, you still got that. Why aren't you like getting over it?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's the old friends, right? I hate to say it. Whereas the new ones, you know, right away, it's when repetitive stress injury gets to the point that it's so debilitating in your life, you will never get over it. I hate to say it. It's just not going to happen. You can get better to a point, and I did, but I plateaued. And thankfully I got to a point where I can do some of my hobbies like cooking again. You know, there was a while there my friends would come over and help me cook. It was great. They were my sous chefs. And that was fun. But eventually, I was able to cook a meal completely on my own because I cook from scratch. I'm very conscientious about that, and I love cooking. And then eventually I was able to cook, longer meals, right? More involved meals. And that was great. But I reached a point where I know my limitations now and what I can and can't do. And you just adapt.
Yes, when we were talking earlier, maybe you can share the experience that you had uh, recently about pulling something out of the trunk of your car, because I think people don't
Oh my
understand
gosh.
the kinds of issues you can get and how you can relapse and how RSI can boomerang in the most
Oh,
unexpected ways.
Oh, absolutely. And, even if you know your limitations, things happen very quickly. So I had, so in answer to your question there, um, I had groceries in my car and I was trying to pull them out and they got caught on something. And like an idiot, I thought, I'll just pull a little harder, right? Because that's what you normally do. And you eventually wrench things away from whatever's hanging them up. Anyway, and so I pulled, and my hand spasmed and let go of the bags, and the back of my head impacted really badly with the metal interior of my car. And I gave myself a concussion, which is now about a month along, and I still am feeling the effects of that concussion. Never muck about with concussions; they're terrible. Um, so yeah, they happen very quickly, and it is a lifelong thing. I mean, I still drink from plastic cups. I will not use glass unless I have to, usually at someone else's house, which for the last year hasn't really been happening. Um, but yeah, no matter how hard you try to adapt, things that you don't expect can crop up in seconds. So be careful, people.
And if you were to offer some advice or wisdom to people, what would you say?
Be gentle with yourself. Find things that you can still do and take notice of the little things that show that you are improving. For instance, for me, it was my ability to lift a cup of water, right? So originally, I found it very hard to pick up a jug and pour from the jug into a cup. Well, one day, hopefully, you'll get to a point where the jug, you can maybe hold it with one hand or just slightly support it. So take notice of the little advances, and be kind to yourself. And if you get into if you slip back and have a lot of pain for a while, just take it easy. Don't beat yourself up. Be kind to yourself.
Yes, and I think one of the things that we touched on earlier was this idea that people may not believe you, and I think that can be a difficult one of the difficulties about RSI is people not getting just how debilitating it can be for people. And, if there were some quick cure, you would have done it 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh, the litany of have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it's a list of things that are just unproven scientifically or just shots in the dark. Believe me, if you're stricken with RSI, you will have done a ton of research on your own, particularly books written by Deborah Quilter. Um, no, seriously, you had the best advice. That was literally a lifesaver, that book. So,
Well, thank you, Alexandria. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's going to benefit a lot of people,
oh,
and
great.
we need to hear from the real experts, and those are the people who have RSI,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you.